Everyone, welcome to episode 88 of IGEL Weekly. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I have Chris Feeney with me and Jamie Reynolds. Guys, how's it going? Chris, how's your weekend?
Good. Good man. Wearing Wolfpack red, baby. That was a good one, man. I'm sorry we missed each other at the game, but that was such a great game to watch. Sorry, UNC fans.
I had about 20 people in my group, so I really had no control. And that was fine. I didn't want any control. In fact, I didn't reach out to people proactively because I didn't want to have any control of that day. But yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to catch up.
No, it's fine. We bought tickets literally like 3 hours before the game. We're like, let's do it. Let's go. So anyway,
By yourself, anything exciting happened over the holidays?
uh, I'm sorry. Was that for Jamie? Sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, I spent some time with the family, went to the Smoky Mountains, and just glad to be back. We had a good time. And if we're talking sports, I'm riding high since yesterday, since my Purdue Boilermakers are number one right now. So
That's basketball, I assume?
yes, it is. Yes.
I haven't gotten started in college basketball yet this year. That'll come in a week or two, I guess. So let's see. Today is November 28th, 2023, and the blog we're going to review for today is share my screen. Blind spots. Get in the know, reveal blind spots in your digital workspace, and enhance UX experience. So I think a lot of what we're going to talk about today is around the user experience, around digital workspace, enhanced UX experience for our users. But in the very first paragraph, it calls out security, and we were just having a conversation before we record. I've found it very interesting and enlightening to see my new-ish security team at XenTegra really taking IGEL on as a primary security play, because when we first started our security practice, I was having to bring up to that group that IGEL, a read-only Linux derivative, was part of a security story, and they immediately didn't grasp it. But within a day, they were all over it. So I think part of what we're going to cover here not only is the user experience, but the security benefits of it. Chris, are you guys? I know you guys as a company have been messaging IGEL as a security platform for a long time now. By long time, I mean like 5 years. Is it really starting to hit as a security play across the ecosystem?
I think so, yeah. And a lot of things have kind of emerged as a result of that. There's what you didn't hear too much about, at least when I started, was zero trust architecture. That's become a very big thing. Obviously, the federal government has a big initiative on implementing that, and so that's where I started with IGEL. When I went into that market, it was the first thing we talked about was security, right? Because you can't put something on a government network without, security looking at it first and that type of thing. But I've told this many times. I never lost a deal because of security problems with IGEL's OS at all. Never once single at all. But what's happened is obviously a lot's occurred in the marketplace. We've had many stories where customers got hit by ransomware in a lot of situations. Their IGEL devices were not compromised, the ones that they had deployed if they weren't fully deployed. And that just sort of, it's that preventive measure. And so you're going to be hearing more about this preventive security model. It's more of a proactive approach versus a reactive response. We've definitely had customers where they were reacting to a situation by running around and plugging UD pockets into devices before they got hit or something. So looking forward to talking more about that in a future podcast.
I do like what you just said. So people have been using IGEL, something like a UD Pocket, as a reactionary method. And once something bad had happened, this, as just a general concept, as well as what we're going to talk about today, is really trying to be both proactive and reactive. We have to be, but around user experience and security at the same time. Which in user compute space, it's in user experience, security, security, in user experience. Number one, two, two, one, in that order all the time. And it sounds like people are starting to understand that. IGEL users. Quick question.
Yeah.
Jamie, do you have an experience around a customer you've seen implement IGEL from a security perspective? Maybe not say the customer name, but maybe tell their story.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it more where we get with customers and they're integrating this as part of their security practice, as opposed to what you said from before, where it was viewed as primarily Horizon or Citrix. But I just a lot of healthcare, a lot of, we certainly see Epic, and it falls into the security realm now as well. So, we're just trying to get that message out and make sure, as Chris said, we're coming up with some new branding and go to market things and stuff like that. So,
Chris, specifically, why did you guys bring this blog forward today?
So a couple things. Earlier this year, we launched Cosmos, and a big change with that was the introduction of apps and an app portal, similar to your mobile platform where you got an app store, for example. And so initially we had a few set of apps out there. Liquidware is a Stratosphere is one of the first ones that was actually developed by the vendor, an IGEL ready vendor in this case, who we've long partnered with. And so wanted to highlight them. I know since then we've had a few others that have emerged, but definitely wanted to kind of highlight the fact that now we launched Cosmos in April. Here we are, November. 6-7 months later, we're seeing more and more of the ready ecosystem begin to work on and build and then release their apps. So. And I know you guys have done a lot of work with Liquidware as well, so wanted to kind of highlight that today.
So this first section here really talks about what Jamie was bringing up a minute ago. It's an end-to-end complete solution, and it's only as good from a user experience or a security perspective as any piece of the story, including, in this case, the managed secured endpoint.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's always been the trick, sort of that last mile visibility. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, going back to the security story earlier, I mean, a lot of what you've probably seen is people focus on the back end infrastructure, maybe the networking to get there. But endpoint visibility, getting into that infrastructure, having a tool that can actually show you, hey, what's really going on if an issue occurs, or you proactively want to monitor and notice that, hey, we got a wireless problem and it's affecting endpoints or whatever, things like that, or just basic admin, functionality like inventory checking or whatever. So,
Jamie, would it be fair to say that people now see this as an end-to-end complete solution, and they may or may not have had good monitoring on the head end in the past, and they certainly don't have it on the complete story, and that's kind of where the Liquidware product kicks in?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Chris, it calls out 1, 2, 3, 4 key features here. You want to just walk us through these?
Yeah, so this is great. What I love about the Stratosphere product here is, we've just got an agent on the endpoint that can actually monitor things on the IGEL device, and most of the user experience is going to be impacted based on a variety of factors, but they can see how the device is doing, like the CPU, the networking connectivity, what's plugged into the device, a lot of different things that can report into their console, and then provide some reporting capabilities. One of the things, for example, that we worked with them on a while back was for customers that were looking at, I need to get to Windows 11. Can my devices get there? If I were to try to in place upgrade them from 10 to 11, they actually had a tool that could, report in, kind of give some visibility, and then actually out of that report, hey, these devices are fine. These will not be, but they will be perfectly fine for IGEL OS. And also these use cases, like from a user experience, doing user, communications through Zoom or Teams calls, where you want to leverage the endpoint hardware for that. So a lot of cool metrics and reporting features that come with a tool like Stratosphere here.
Well, let's just walk through them. So it's metrics for application performance, device health, and network connectivity. That's one call out.
Mm-hmm.
Detailed device inventory and configuration insights. It's almost like those are 5 all by themselves. Proactive event logs and alerts, and comprehensive compliance reporting. Obviously things that have been part of an end-to-end story all this time, easily done in the Windows world, but not always thought about in the delivered compute world and inclusive of the endpoint. And that's where the Liquidware solution kicks in. Stratosphere just in general on the Windows side, but has been available on the IGEL piece for I don't know, what, 3-4 years now?
Yeah, I think we first announced the integration at Citrix Synergy in early 2020, right before the world came to a halt, if you remember. And they had just integrated into OS 11 at the time. Prior to that, we were using the custom partition mechanism. So it's been, coming up on 4 years now. And then obviously they've now built the OS 12 version of that same app that works with their products.
Mm.
Okay. And then the last section of the blog says reveal user blind spots. It doesn't go into a lot of detail here, but Jamie, what are they trying to say here?
Oh, I'm sorry. That was for me. Yeah, Chris, you want to take that one?
Well, I think from my interaction with the folks there, I mean, you can see, if a user's complaining about something, where's the problem? Maybe is it something inside the application they're accessing, or is it a virtual desktop that is performing seemingly slow? Is it actually something where it's maybe logging in, taking too long, whatever, which as you're logging in, you've got things like user persona details, profiles, all that stuff that there are tools out there that can kind of help optimize that. But do you have something that can kind of really point out where the smoking gun is? And the user is generally going to experience something on the endpoint. They don't know if it's an issue with the endpoint. It might be something completely different. And so this tool can kind of help figure out, hey, if there's nothing wrong from the endpoint to the network, maybe there's something going on inside the user resource desktop application that is causing an issue. And this is kind of what that's revealing here is because I'm blind if I don't have that data, that
Yeah.
information.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't seeing that before, but yeah, I mean, just thinking back to, being an admin back in the days, right? And you hear VDI is slow this morning, right? It's always a tough spot or even a blind spot getting all the way back to the endpoint if a customer doesn't have an end-to-end solution. So, as an example, customers love features like the Citrix monitoring and things like that, but we're only looking at the application servers or the VDI instances. So this is a great utility to have here, or feature, right? To see a full end-to-end visibility to what might be going on as far as the blind spots go, right? So
I should have set this up by saying this. And Jamie, I'll ask you a question. How long has it been since you administered an actual end user compute solution at a
how
how long?
how long? Maybe just weeks.
Okay. So here's the question to you. Traditional end user computing, where you take a Windows computer that's joined to a domain or something, talking to servers and things on the back end, versus end user compute, where we're delivering a virtual workload of some type, maybe apps, maybe desktop, what have you, to a endpoint that is specifically being used to connect to that delivered compute workload. Would it be fair to say that EUC has more blind spots than traditional client server computing?
It certainly could be, depending on the the build of it. But yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it's often forgotten, right? I mean, we think we're gonna build these in the data center and deliver them, and everything will be great until there's a problem with the endpoint, right? So
My response is absolutely. There's more blind spots, and they're not where you think they're going to be because you're deliver, not deploy. And the truth is, and what you just said, it's not sometimes, it's every time. Always, always, always gremlins in end user compute solutions, and they're fixable. But most people who grew up in a traditional client server compute world have no idea where to start looking.
Yeah, no, this is great because and we've talked a lot about just certainly at events and on this podcast before, just helping people understand what is their actual endpoint strategy. And I think going back to the security conversation earlier, we're at a point in time where yet another technical trend is emerging. Windows 10, for example, is going to end of life in 2025. Windows 11 is emerging more and more and more. But and the hardware refresh cycle is back up again, after, everybody bought their stuff 3-4 years ago. And, so there's this, tsunami of scenarios going on where maybe, they have to consider their endpoints They either can't upgrade the ones they've got because the hardware doesn't support the new version, but they can go virtualize that, obviously, or maybe take advantage of some Microsoft licensing they own, whatever it is. But as you've talked about, don't forget the endpoint. It all starts there. The users are going to walk up and touch something with their hands and keyboard and mouse or whatever. You have to have something that can deliver a great user experience. They'll reject the solution if they don't have that. These are all things that you guys have focused on quite a bit, all the time.
An end user compute is an asynchronous solution where you have a head end, you have an endpoint, but you got to have both. The head end could be in the cloud, it could be in your data center. That endpoint could be full-blown Windows with a gazillion gigs of memory in it, or it could be a limited thin client, or somewhere in between. More than likely is the answer. But here's the main thing I find all the time is people I talk to, when I ask this question, do you have a digital workspace strategy? If they even try to answer, it comes out and it's like they really don't. And then if I say, do you have a digital workspace strategy that includes an endpoint strategy that fits into that digital workspace strategy, the answer is almost always no. We just have to keep beating the drum and sending the message out and trying to get people to think in those two ways. Jamie, you just came from an organization. We're not going to say who it is here. The leadership of that organization, did they have a true digital workspace strategy for the organization? Or was it just kind of ad hoc using solutions as needed?
They certainly had a solution, and it was being developed and streamlined, if you will. So
that's good. Most organizations, somewhere at the top of the stack. When I ask them the question, they really, really don't. And sometimes you pull back the covers, and 80% of the users are, riding around with a Windows device and a VPN, and
it's very common. Yeah.
By far common. 90+% of organizations are still doing the same thing I did when I got my first job in 1997. Brand new laptop, no more than 3 years old, with a VPN on it. Most organizations still do that. How crazy is that? It's 2023. All right, guys. Well, thanks for jumping on and covering this. Happy to talk about the liquidware solution and what it does in the ecosystem in general, specifically as it relates to end-user compute and IGEL. Really is something that has a lot of value for users.
Yeah. And I know before we wrap up, just kind of tying into just the larger ecosystem you're working on, you guys actually worked with liquidware to set up a ServiceNow scenario where having a tool like this in their environment that could actually feed into their ServiceNow environment too. So that is just another thing that you guys focus on, and I know we've been talking about a similar thing for IGEL.
Everything that we talked about in this podcast comes back to, it's great if you can get the data, but what are you going to do with it? And that's where in our world, we get that back into ServiceNow, and then you have a fighting chance as to what you then do next. And that world is going to evolve a ton once you start talking about AI and what artificial intelligence can then do with that data that humans would have taken forever to do with that same data.
Yeah, it is fascinating to see kind of what's emerging with that whole topic, the tremendous benefits of using something like that to look for, hey, we've had 12 cases on this same topic, right? Here was the resolution, and feed that back to a user or something rather than
How about this? I was listening to a ton of podcasts this morning, one of them on the advancements in AI in the last 6 months. For example, in one of the AI tools, they told it to go write the game Pong, and it did it in 30 seconds. From scratch, it wrote Pong. Crazy. Apparently, the guy who originally wrote Pong took 3 months to get it done. But an example of what you just said, Chris, is you through liquidware get the stuff into ServiceNow. You look at it with artificial intelligence, find out that it's been some problem, and through generative artificial intelligence, you tell it to write a script to solve that problem. Boom, it's done.
I think we're just on the cusp of the capabilities here. Hopefully nobody develops Skynet and we're now looking at Terminator 3, but
Well, one of the things they talked about this morning was that the guy predicted within 6 months, one of the AI tools will be able to create a Pixar movie from scratch.
That's incredible.
You wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah, I did see that. It's something else.
Wow.
All
Awesome.
right, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll meet again in a week and do it again. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Andy.